ThamePo just premiered last night on GMMTV, through YouTube, and I believe it's also airing on Netflix. This show is beautiful. I have to say that as the start. It's got beautiful actors as the leads. The cinematography is beautiful as well. It already has a lot of promise as far as music. Hello, Last Twilight, shout out. And there's a lot of anticipation and hype for this show. I guess my question is there enough story to keep us engaged for the whole ride of ThamePo? Let's get into it. Hi, I'm Monique. I am the host of Off by Purple Art podcast, where I talk to you about K-dramas, C-dramas, BTS, and so much more. And the so much more includes BLs, which I've been doing a lot more podcasts focused on BLs. ThamePo is the latest one. I would say this is probably one of my most highly anticipated from this year, and the others that I've anticipated unfortunately end up letting me down. I watched the first episode last night and it has a lot of promise already. I think, as I mentioned in my opening, it's a gorgeous show to look at, and it has a very different feel from typical GMMTV projects, and I'm not really surprised because I think they realize the potential that this show has, and it could be a massive breakout hit. I love the inclusion of having like a real T-pop band within the show that are going to be portraying musicians that can dance and sing and vocalize, and I'm hoping that the acting potential is there. Definitely William and Est are doing a great job as the leads. The story is pretty straightforward. We have Poe, who is our main lead character. We're introduced to him right away. He has a lot of promise as director, and we're shown pretty early on that he has a pretty big breakup with his ex that essentially is a catalyst for the story heading forward. His ex, I think, was a leech and was siphoning off of Poe's energy, and Poe was a very loving and devoted partner, and because of his skill set as a director, filmographer, editor, he helped out his boyfriend quite a bit, and his boyfriend ended up building this new startup and essentially shooting up into stardom, and now is a CEO of his own business, and essentially dumped Poe to social climb and to continue to rise up in the ranks and continue to be successful, leaving Poe really heartbroken. And he had a lot of promise in his career. He had a lot of awards, and essentially that pretty much put him right back down, and he ended up working for his uncle in the suit shop. So you see him trying to get a gig, trying to get hired, and unfortunately nothing is gelling or selling for him. So he is down in the dumps, and I believe his friend and or sister, wasn't really sure, I wasn't paying attention to be honest, but a really cute girl ends up helping him out and saying, hey, I have a potential gig for you. I have a potential gig for you, but you gotta show up, you gotta do a little research, you know what I mean? So the potential gig is following a famous Thai pop group and being their director, their own filmographer, and getting raw footage of them because they're gearing up for a next major tour. Sounds like a great gig, right? So he goes in for the interview and he is fully prepped. She is a super fan of this group, so she has all the details. She's like, this is your script. This is all the pertinent information you need to know. You go in there, you make damn sure that you land this so you can throw this back in your trash ex's face. So he's like, bet, will do. He interviews really well this time around, and seemingly everything is on the up and everything is working out. Ha! Then we get the fated first meeting between Poe and Tham, who is essentially the lead vocalist for this group, Mars. This is the famous pop group. They have a first meeting, first day. He's trying to get his badge, he's just getting a little bit of the lowdown of how the record company works and how they are pretty much the biggest selling act, and there's like so much hype anticipation around them. But He's not getting enough details. He's super nervous, and he has a really bad first impressions with them. And I actually really like this part in the show because they get off really on the wrong foot. You know, Tham is already pissed off. He's arguing with the CEO of the record label company. He's just not in a good mood. And then he sees Po with the camera kind of filming the entire interaction. And he basically just stomps up to him like, what the hell are you doing? Get that camera out of here. Who the hell are you? So the other coworkers are kind of like, you know, he's kind of like a new guy, and they're kind of like shrinking back. And Tham like gets in his face, and he is just ripping into him. He's like, "Are you like a sasaeng? Are you a stalker? What the hell are you doing? You trying to get some footage for your little fan club? What? Getting in his face." And I loved it. Like, I think William played that really well, and you could just see the chemistry already, and there's just like sparks flying everywhere. And Po was like, "Where's all this energy coming from? Like, get out of here. Get out of my face with all that." So needless to say, their first interaction, really rough. So they have this really tense battle of wits between one another, and you see Po observing the group dynamics, and there is a lot of tension. So Tham is crashing out. He is just angry, highly irritable. He already is on the bad foot with Po, and the other members are really cold and standoffish towards Tham as well. But then we finally get to see them perform, and this is the real magic part of the show, is getting like actual musicians, actual talent to play these characters, because it's cute, it's fresh, you know, you can tell the dancers know what they're actually doing. And then we get a solo stage with Tham, and it is the same song that William sings as the OST for Last Twilight, which I thought was a really great tie-in, and it's such a gorgeous song. And you can just see Po gets stripped down to like nothing, just hearing his raw vocals, and it's highly charged, like highly emotional, and you can tell there's a lot more going on with Tham that we're first introduced to. You kind of thinking he's kind of a prick, but the more emotion that he puts into this solo song, you're like, no, there's a lot more going on. And then Po is given real reason as to why there's so much tension in the group, and why some of the footage is coming off really stiff and awkward, and why Tham is kind of lashing out. Turns out that the group is going to be actually breaking up. So they're going to potentially disband, and this whole tour that Po has been brought on to document all this footage for is essentially like a thank you to the fans, and essentially a goodbye story to help with the rollout, and to help Tham now become a solo artist. There's like a Korean company looking into him, maybe getting him on the track to be a K-pop star now, and he has a lot of potential, and he has a lot of interest. But the company and the production company does not see that the other four members would potentially be as high earners as Tham himself, so they'll have to disband. And obviously everyone knows, and it's super awkward and uncomfortable. And to me, this is where I want to talk about the potential of the show. There's a lot of chemistry between Po and Tham already. I really think them kind of clashing a lot in like the first half of the episode was really fiery and really good. In the second half, it gets a lot more emotional, and there is a segment where Po has to sit down and interview the members individually, and you know, Tham of course is first up to bat, and Tham of course is still being very aloof and standoffish, and he's trying to get something out of him. He's trying to connect with him emotionally, and it's just not happening. So Tham basically throws in his face, you know, I recognize you from somewhere previously. I saw you at a fan meet, and I saw you with a camera. I know you're a stalker. I recognize your face, and I'm going to let the higher up know. Meanwhile, it's a big misunderstanding. As I was saying, the friend, the sister that initially got him the gig, she's a super fan, and he kind of went on behalf of her to collect some footage, and it was like a chance counter, and he didn't think that Tham would remember, but Tham remembered him. He was that memorable. So they're arguing back and forth, and it's getting really, really juicy, and it's getting really personal. And then finally, Po kind of breaks down because now he finally has a job and he finally was going to get his life back on track again. And then here comes this punk basically saying, no, I'm going to blow up that dream again. And Po lets it all out. He's like, you have a lot of nerve looking your nose down at me when you really are the selfish one here. Look how you're treating your members. You're going to leave them behind. Look, they've been with you through so many years. They've had all this blood, sweat, and tears with you, and you're just going to go and F off and now be this big superstar and leave them all behind the trash and essentially destroy what you've built together as a group. And to me, that was like the most climactic, really, really emotional scene. Beautiful work. Probably one of the most emotional stirring scenes I've seen from a GMMTV production this year, outside of last Twilight, which I had my issues with towards the end, but it had some really remarkable, memorable moments. And if it wasn't for the last 3 episodes in last Twilight, I would have rated that show a lot higher than I did. And it finally comes out. Po releases all this inner anguish and stress about how he has felt in his treatment in his last relationship and how he can relate to the other members. And then Tham basically throws it back in his face and is like, well, how do you think I feel as someone that now has to break away from the members who has built all this with them, has this foundation with them? You know, I'm just as heartbroken as they are. You know, you're only seeing one side of the story. You don't know the entire picture. And the emotional crux of it is when they kind of reunite in a later scene. And I think one of the best scenes from the first episode, in my humble opinion, is, and where I hope the show really takes it, is Tham ends up seeing some raw footage that Po had taken of the group without Tham being there, and you can see them joking and goofing on each other, and they're having a great time. And you see Tham just slowly break down and his heart break, because this is a side of the members he doesn't get to see anymore because they've essentially iced him out. And to me, the show is really going to focus and zero in on the romance and the forbidden aspect of it, because you have someone that is hired to do a job, and then you have this one member that is going to be breaking off, doing his own work, and you know, the whole limelight, fame. Then you have to go into like the sexuality portion of it and the inappropriateness of it and the power dynamics and all that stuff. But I think Tham's relationship with his members, I genuinely hope that this is where the show will lead, because I don't know, this show could go 2 ways with me. As good as the first episode is, I can see the show potentially flaming out very early on if it doesn't have a lot of emotional resonance in the romance part. And to me, there's already so much barriers that they have been able to break through in the first ep. And I know it's very early to say this. I think the show has immense amount of potential. But I really genuinely hope, and I hope by them showing us Tham breaking down and crying and grieving essentially the friendship and the brotherhood he's lost with his bandmates as he has to continue to ascend in his career. I hope that is actually zeroed in a lot more, and that we get to see the other actors, the other musicians actually really try to find a way to rebuild back up that relationship, so that it really becomes a difficult, life-changing choice for Tham, whether he's going to continue to ascend in his solo career or continue in some way, shape, or form with his bandmates and find career and success through that lens, even though pretty much all signs point to the fact that there's just not enough money to promote all of these members anymore, and they're going to be left behind, and Tham is the only one with the true potential. So that power struggle between leaving behind what brought you to the level of success that you have versus taking the new step forward, and I genuinely hope that the show can land that, because it could potentially be great stuff. So there's a lot of promise in the show, but I am hesitant because I have unfortunately been disappointed by many GMMTV productions, and even the shows that I think are more higher on the rating scale and that have definitely have a little bit more critical acclaim, some way, shape, or form, have disappointed me, with the exception of Not Me. To me, that's like the one GMMTV show that I think is almost close to being flawless. But there's plenty of shows where I loved and enjoyed the overall ride, but they still somehow disappoint. Last Twilight, in recent memory, to me, as beautiful as most of that show was, like the first 9 eps were incredible, I was so disappointed by the last 3 that it almost ruined the entire viewing experience altogether. And I genuinely don't want that for this show, because I just see so much potential in it, and it's I feel very similar to how I did when I first got into Last Twilight. I could see the amount of promise and potential in it, and I was shocked by how much I ended up walking away from the show being disappointed. So I will say, is there enough story for ThamePo to be incredible? I think they laid a lot of good groundwork, and I genuinely hope that if they can get the other actors, the other musicians that are in the band to rise to the occasion along with William, and somehow they can keep that tension between Poe and Tham, and maybe less on bringing back the ex, because I know that's going to be a storyline. They're going to bring back the ex, and he's going to regret the fact that he left Poe behind, and he's going to become a thing. But I genuinely hope they lean less on that kind of usual cliche trope and really get to the nitty-gritty heart of the matter and pull out a massive surprise, like, I don't know, My School President, for example. That had a lot of emotional resonance in it, and I feel like the climbing tension between the members could be the big push to make this a great story. Not just a great BL, but just a great story, period. But it's very beautiful to look at, nice music. I see a lot of potential with it. Let me know your thoughts if you have stayed for the entirety of this podcast. If you're watching the video format of it on YouTube, let me know your thoughts in the description below in the comment section. If you're listening via Spotify or Apple Podcasts, feel free to leave your commentary as well. I would be very interested to know.